Hey there, you're listening to Sport Coach Education, the podcast that explores coach training in all its various forms. I'm your host, Liz Byam. Let's get started. Today, I'm happy to be talking to Michelle Davidson. She's a longtime swim coach and a lifeguard trainer, and I've known her since I was a teenager when we were lifeguards together. Michelle's stories suggest that coach learning and education don't come necessarily from certifications alone. It comes from a mix of formal coursework as well as scientific understanding and ample experience. Michelle does not have a formal title as a coach developer in swimming. She does train rookie lifeguards as well as junior lifeguards. My daughter was lucky enough to have her as a coach for junior lifeguards and as a mentor when she became a lifeguard. When it comes to swimming, Michelle is contributing to coach development by modeling good practices, mentoring newer coaches, and Michelle is also the epitome of inspiration, continuing to compete and medal at national championships in swimming and lifeguarding. While she is quick to point out that some of the best swim coaches were not swimmers themselves, her vast experience as an athlete surely contributes to her ability to be a strong coach and to inspire the next generation of coaches as well. As I said, I was lucky enough to work with Michelle as a young lifeguard myself, and although I don't think I was conscious of it at the time, reflecting back, she had a profound impact on my path as an athlete and as an overall badass human being. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm excited to be here. A little nervous. I don't do podcasts. I'm not in the social media world very much and etc.
I've been looking forward to talking to you because you have maybe more of a sporty background. I always have people start by telling me their experience as an athlete, and that can mean a lot of different things to different guests, and then their transition into coaching. And I feel like you have more of the athlete going than and you continue to than a lot of people that I have on here. So why don't you introduce yourself and then, give us that athlete coach overview.
Okay. I'm Michelle Davidson. I've been swimming most of my life for over 50 years, and the swimming has carried me into many other sports, and I've enjoyed it. I swam in high school. I got a scholarship to college to swim. So I've been lucky enough to use swimming also to get opportunities to travel the world. I've been to Australia, Thailand, Japan. And then, of course, it gave me a job in high school that we did together, the lifeguarding job that continues. I've been there 40 years and continues to be a wonderful experience, where I continue to love the water and like to surf ski on my 19-foot kayak and row boats and any water sport possible. And in high school, I started teaching swim lessons as a job also. And I've always enjoyed swim lessons. So I have the experience of coaching high school swimming, age group swimming. I've also coached in high school soccer and lacrosse, but mainly swimming. And then I continue to coach. I still coach Monmouth Barracudas, which I started coaching in 1994. And I continue working there with age group swimmers. But this year, now that I've retired from teaching, I have had the opportunity, and I was a high school teacher, mind you. I am now teaching preschool swim lessons, which has been a very interesting opportunity to go to the opposite spectrum.
Is that your first time doing that?
I did it years ago. I used to, when I was in high school, I did some of the Mommy and Me. I even did adult swim lessons, which for a high school student is intimidating because at that age, they're all older than you. And finally, one of the adults looked at me and they go, "You know a lot more about swimming than we do. So just explain what you know." And over the years, I've been lucky enough to develop my style of coaching, and I believe every athlete is their own individual. So I have enough years experience that, yes, I use the science behind it. I use that. But some people need to swim a different way than other people. And especially with adults, when you're teaching them, adults, everybody wants to get something different out of it. So they don't have to have the perfect stroke. Where younger children, I try to follow the progression as best as possible. Even some of them are going to be kickers, some of them are better at pull. So even with them, it changes what I'm going to teach them and what I'm going to focus based on their abilities and what their strengths and weaknesses are.
I actually also taught swim lessons when I was in high school, and they told me you'll never have adults and you'll never have one-on-one lessons. And of course, as soon as I started, I had that one-on-one adult lessons with the woman who had a near drowning experience. Yeah, but it worked out okay. So you glossed over a lot of your. I mean, I'm gonna pull it apart right now. You glossed over a lot of your youth swimming. So I want to know how you got into swimming. Was it your parent? How did it start? YMCA? What are we talking about?
I started at the Asbury Park YMCA. My father at the time was a police officer and a commercial scuba diver. And because of all the water in the area, they felt that we needed swim lessons for our own safety. And I needed to run around because I'm not diagnosed, but I would say I'm ADHD. And I had a lot of hyperactivity, especially when I was little, and I needed to run myself ragged. But I would run around and do sports and stuff. And I'm like a bull in a china shop in most of my sports. But then I jumped in the water and then I was very graceful. So I took right away to the water with swim lessons. And from when my sister and I were very small, my father used to take us in the water, get us acclimated. He'd take us to the bottom of the pool and we'd tap him on the shoulder and then we'd go to the top. So I was never afraid of the water, but they wanted us to build an appreciation and an understanding of the dangers of the water so we would be safe around the water.
So they didn't have the intention of having you become some competitive swimmer or anything.
Unlike my friend Nancy, who I swim with, I didn't come from a swimming family. My mom, when she was younger, there weren't many women's sports. She did play softball and she did do sports back in the 50s and 60s when she was in high school, but there wasn't a lot available for women at the time. So it really wasn't meant to develop into becoming a swimmer who went to college for swimming or swam the English Channel or anything like that.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely not going to let you not talk about that. Okay, so you started at the Y in swim lessons. When did it get more competitive?
Well, it was really funny because at the Y, they pushed the swim lessons. And for myself, I waited till I got to shark, which was the highest level because they had.
Brings back memories.
They had each of you started as a guppy or whatever. And that was the names of the different programs at the YMCA. And I made it all the way to shark. And I was about 10 years old and I started some summer swim team. I spent a lot of time at the Ocean Township pool and I swam in the summers there. But after I made it to shark and I was 10, my sister was 8, we both moved to Shore Area YMCA and we started swimming year round at that time. And we barely made the team. I was like the slowest in everything but backstroke. But before I left there, and I decided I could make Y Nationals, and everybody thought I was crazy. So I just made Y Nationals, and I wanted to take my coach when I was in 8th grade. And ironically, he ruptured his Achilles tendon. So my mom was my coach in Orlando at Y Nationals. And then after that year, I knew I needed more pool time because we only had 4 days for an hour and a half. So then I switched over to what was Red Bank Y and is now Jersey Shore YMCA.
Gotcha. So you were a Y swimmer in high school and swam for your high school team?
That is correct. And I just love swimming. Swimming to me, it wasn't more important. I made sure I got good grades, but my priority was swimming over. I got my work done. I made sure I got the A's, but I didn't necessarily take the honors class because I was more into swimming and that was my priority with my time.
Nice. So was there not any time for any other sports?
I did play soccer and softball growing up, but as a freshman in high school, I was still playing soccer and I played goalie. And in the fall of my freshman year, I was playing travel soccer. And at that time, high school soccer was in the spring for girls. So I broke my leg playing soccer, and my father gave me the ultimatum. I had to pick a sport. I could pick either one, but I had to pick a sport. And I felt I was more accomplished after making nationals in swimming. So I stuck to swimming But my senior year of high school, I was going to run track. I was finally going to get to do a second sport because my freshman year, I tried to run cross country, but my swimming coach, it was very difficult with swimming to get the time in. So my senior year, my friends from my soccer team, they didn't have a goalie. So I was allowed to do my 6 practices before nationals, and I did pretty light work at the practices. And when I came out, I split time with a girl who played goalie. And so we split time, and I got to play with my friends my senior year. But I had signed up for track and didn't tell my parents until on my way home on the plane. So my father said, if you lose your swimming scholarship to college, I'm not paying. But it all worked out. I did pull a quad and they wanted to give me crutches. And I looked at him, I go, sorry, can't go home with crutches. Ain't happening. But other than that, it was a lot of fun. And I got to play some soccer my senior year again.
I had no idea. I don't partake in any ball sports. I did not grow up with them, so I have no skills whatsoever. I have coached soccer and softball though, oddly enough. So what was your event? Like, did you swim distance in high school and college?
Ironically, no. I don't even really like freestyle, which is the main stroke of open water. But I was really a backstroker. I could do the 50, 100, 200 backstroke. I was the top one on my team at Red Bank. I broke the records. Eventually, other swimmers came along and broke my records, but I did have the records in those. And my coach would make it impossible for me, but I'd do 200 butterfly because nobody else liked doing it. And I just liked doing the long butterfly. Nice stretched out. I was a kicker. And so my senior year, they switched coaches and I finally got to swim the 200 fly at nationals. And then when I went to college, I'm mainly a backstroker, but I also did 200 butterfly too.
When did the distance swimming start?
Well, I started swimming with a woman, Nancy Martin. And when I was in high school, my senior year, when I was about 18, I decided in my mind I was going to run a marathon before I was 30, just because I wanted to get my swimming career out of the way. And I was going to do an Ironman triathlon by the time I was 35. And then all of a sudden, I ran a marathon at 29, and I was swimming with a woman named Nancy Stedman Martin. And when she was 30, she swam around Manhattan. So she goes, you should be swimming marathons, not running them. So when I was turning 30, we both swam around Manhattan, which is 28 and a half miles. It is current aided. And so there was a race existing that raised money for swim lessons for kids in New York City and cleaning the waters around Manhattan, the MIMS Association. Emma, it's an acronym.
Michelle mentions MIMS. It's the Manhattan Island Marathon Swim. And it is actually longer than it's a 26.2-mile marathon because the Manhattan Island Marathon Swim is 28.5 miles. And you can find out more about it as well as Michelle's other swims in the Long Swims database from ultraswimming.org. And it is easy enough to look up her names and see all of the crazy races that she's completed, including her 2004 English Channel swim, Catalina Channel in 2008. There are multiple Manhattan Island Marathon swims, Bermuda.
Anyway, so they hosted that swim each year. And unfortunately, it was timed not for the fastest swimmers. So we got like second and third in that. We were in the top of the women anyway. And we were in the top 6, I think, finishing overall. But it was time for the slower. So luckily, I was new to this long distance. And when I got to Hell Gate, which is where the East River meets the Harlem River, I didn't realize the tide was still against me. And I was kind of staying in the same spot for about 30 minutes. And my father on the boat who was helping was getting frustrated, but I had no idea. And I was just happily swimming along. And it just depends on the tides, how fast. So that took me like 9 hours and 54 minutes. And somewhere in there, I actually, which is very rare, I've only beaten Nancy twice in the Hudson River. Once you get in the Hudson River, you're flying. It's so much fun. The only problem is we would get there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and the southeast had kicked up and you were going right into the chop. But otherwise, there was a good current going with you. And somehow I ended up passing Nancy and finishing in 9 hours and 54 minutes for my first time. Later on, I did it as a training for the English Channel. We both trained together again, my friend Nancy and I. And our kickoff, the June, over a year before, was another around Manhattan. And that time we did it in around 8 hours because it was timed better with the currents and tide.
Crazy. So wait, before that first swim around Manhattan, what was the longest you'd ever swam?
I think I did the Little Red Lighthouse. So I did mile swims locally in the summer. I had done triathlons and stuff, but the shorter ones. I hadn't done an Ironman at this point in my life. And there was a swim called the Little Red Lighthouse swim. And that was from the George Washington Bridge to the Chelsea Piers. And it's a 7.8-mile swim, but it was current aided and it took me an hour and 15 minutes. So I was doing 9-minute mile because the Hudson River is so much fun when you have the current with you and you're flying. The only thing is I'm not an expert on Manhattan, especially at that time, and they didn't mark the finish well. So you had to go in at the Chelsea Piers, and most of the top finishers missed, and we had to come back along the wall against the current, and I still did it in an hour and 15 minutes. So it was a really fun swim, which when you have the current with you, it makes distance swimming a little bit more fun.
Yeah, a lot more fun probably. The only thing I think I've ever experienced similar is a drift dive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they put you in here and they pick you up over there, and it's like riding a lazy river. So that's cool. All right, so that's a big jump. And then when did you do the Ironman?
I did it. Well, my Ironman got messed up because I ended up after I swam around Manhattan, which was in 1999, 2000. One of my friends said, "Hey, why don't we do the English Channel if you're doing that?" And he never did it. But then Nancy picked up and the two of us trained together. So when I was 34 in 2004, that's when we trained and swam the English Channel. And every Sunday we'd jump in the ocean in our bathing suits and we'd swim. At that time, I could swim a half an hour in 40-degree water. We'd train, and even when in March, it dropped into the 30s, and we'd still go for our swims every Sunday in our bathing suit. We could swim the jetty length and stuff. And then because of that, I tried to do an Ironman at 36 because I needed the time to train, and I set up some races. And then I had a bike accident and they thought I broke my wrist. So I stopped training for the Ironman at that point. And they did the first ever Gertrude Ederle swim from Battery Park to Sandy Hook. And so Nancy and I did it. And it was huge and really rough conditions. And they weren't used to running it. Our kayakers bailed on us. So we had 2 boats with us, and our poor crews got sick, but I was fine. I was just swimming in big waves. You just go up and down over the waves. It was no big deal. So we did the first ever, just the 2 of us. Everybody else dropped out, and we did the first ever Gertrude Ederle memorial swim.
If you don't know who she is, Gertrude Ederle was an international swimming phenomenon. Personally, I love that she grew up in New York City, but spent her summers at the Jersey Shore learning to swim, which I can personally relate to. She grew up the daughter of German immigrants, one of 6 kids, and her family ran a butcher shop. By the time she was a teenager, Ederle was already one of the top swimmers in the world. At the 1924 Paris Olympics, she won a gold medal in the 4x100 freestyle relay and 2 bronze medals in individual events. Then, upon the team's arrival home, they were greeted with a ticker tape parade for their phenomenal job at the Olympics. But what she's probably most well known for is her English Channel swim. At the time, only men had completed the swim across the English Channel, and she was basically told that a woman couldn't do it. Not only did she complete the English Channel swim in 1926, but she broke all records which had been previously held by men. And she held on to that record until 1950. And once again, when she returned home, she was greeted with a ticker tape parade in Manhattan. Michelle mentions the Gertrude Ederle swim. It's now called the Ederle swim. And it goes from Battery Park City, the tip of Manhattan, to Sandy Hook, New Jersey, Monmouth County. Gertrude Ederle used this swim to prepare for her English Channel attempt, and Michelle also completed this swim to train for her English Channel crossing. It's a 16.1-mile swim.
And then I got back on it, and finally in 2009, I ended up doing what became the Ironman Maryland. And ironically, cycling was my worst. I just got on my bike and would ride.
You had a proper road bike and everything?
Yeah, I had a tri-bike, one of the ones with the aero bars. I actually used Nancy's old bike. It was from the 80s, but it was carbon fiber. It was a pretty cool bike.
I still have my tri-bike from 99.
And then I also, I had done plenty of mountain biking and stuff like that. I'm not as much as you, not as experienced as you, but I used to have a lot of fun.
Nice. No, that triathlon sounds so much fun. And so where in there was swimming the English Channel?
So my first really long swim, of course, was 99 Manhattan, where really a marathon swim. And then I spent the year, I did another around Manhattan. And then, like I said, every Sunday we were swimming long in the ocean. In the winter, we were swimming shorter, but just getting acclimated, and we were swimming longer in the pool. And then in April of that year, there's a Tampa Bay marathon swim that it's for Earth Day. And it was a 28.5 mile. And usually you go about the same speed in Tampa Bay that you would in the Channel, which I did around 10 hours.
Much warmer, I would assume.
It was in the 60s. It wasn't as warm as you think it would be.
Okay.
Because the Channel's in the 50s, it was in the 60s. So it was a good year, because normally it is warmer. But our year, it was a little bit chillier than normal. Not bad, but a little bit chillier than normal. And so we did all of those as stepping stones to train and prepare for the Channel. And then I was supposed to do it the year before, but I also ended up paddling back from Cuba on the women's relay. It was Cuba to Key West. So we did 115, and then I think we went on to do 125 miles to set the distance record for a paddle at that time. Now people believe one of the women on my relay, she actually did a solo of it, I believe, later on. She was a high school student with me, and I was in my 30s.
You hang out with some pretty intense people.
I just got to see her. I went down for the Key West paddle, and her name is Cynthia Aguilera. Her family's originally from Nicaragua, and she lived in Miami. And I actually saw her last year at the last ever paddle around Key West.
So tell me about the big English Channel swim.
Okay, the English Channel swim was really interesting. You felt like you were a part of history, because you went there and there were like a group of people there that are all meeting to attempt it. And in the English Channel, only about 20% of the first attempts make it across. There was a gentleman from Croatia in our hotel who swam in the 1960 Olympics for Yugoslavia, and he had attempted it before and didn't make it, but he actually ended up making it. He left in the morning of the day I left, and I ended up leaving at night. And what happens is you sign up with a boat captain. So you do it solo. You have a crew. My sister and my mom are on my boat. There's an observer from the English Channel Association and a captain and a mate. And there's fishing boats. So the first mate and the captain are there to help you. And when Nancy went, it was raining all day. She went on Tuesday, and it was raining all day and was frustrating. But rain doesn't matter if you're in the water. It stinks for your crew, but it was flat. And she was praying all day for some sun, and the sun came out, and I guess it got choppy, but she had a pretty straight shot. It was right in the heart of this neap tide, which is less tidal difference because of the phase of the moon. So she didn't get pulled quite as far as I did, because when I swam, there was a 1.5 foot tidal difference, and it was heading into the spring tide. So I got pulled further on my swim. But she got to ride a wave in on the beach, and people started clapping and saying, "Great job." So after she went, I was hoping to go the next day, but we call your boat captain. You're there. We were there in Dover, which is a small town. We'd have dinner, and we call our boat captain. So night after Tuesday. So Wednesday, no. Thursday, no. Friday, no. And then Nancy started talking to her on Friday because it looked like I was going to have to come back the whole next year. And you get put at the bottom of the list then. And there was a good chance I wouldn't have gotten to go if that happened. So Nancy, who happens to be an attorney, is very good at arguing. So she insisted I was so much faster than her. And in distance, like I said, I've only beaten her twice. But we were comparable. And so she convinced him to take me Saturday night. So I think at least 5 people went on Saturday morning, and the guy in my hotel and another person. I believe there was a Navy SEAL. I think he was the one. They were the two that made it Saturday morning. And then the rest of the people did not finish. So my boat captain didn't really want to take me, but because he had a perfect record so far, and she convinced him. So I started at 10:30 at night with fireworks going off. And they do it at low tide. So your boat's on its side. There's no water. They wait for the water to come in and they take you on a dinghy to your boat because it's not really on the dock. It's moored there. And so we got in the boat. And when the water came in, he took me around to the bulkhead of the channel. That area it's right near Shakespeare's Beach where a lot of the captains would leave from. But he liked the bulkhead of the channel, and it's called Samphire Hoe. So I have a picture of Samphire Hoe where I started. And so what he did, he had the boat there. He shined a light on the ladder that's on the bulkhead of the channel. And I swam through very rough conditions. It had thrown my mom across the boat. It was a pretty rough day out. And I swam to the ladder. I climbed up the ladder and he hit the horn and I dove in and started swimming the channel. And it was dark. Luckily Nancy went first. So she'd warned me there were some pretty big jellyfish, but they were about 2 feet down. And so I'm staring in the dark abyss. And then, of course, there's a lot of phosphorescence. So all of a sudden I'd see these spooky, glowing jellyfish. So I stopped looking down. And the first hour, I kept feeling like it was lasting forever because I was doing my feeds every hour. And it felt like it was lasting forever. And I kept looking to see if I was missing my feed and everything else. But then finally they did it. And the way that I got nutrients is I had on a rope a water bottle, and then they'd have taped either goo for the first several hours. And then after 5 hours, they taped a sandwich baggie with a quarter of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But little did I know, I was making progress, but the tide wasn't turning. And according to what they said, if the tide didn't turn soon, I was going to land in Portugal, not France. And he told Nancy that he didn't think I was going to make it. Again, I had no idea any of this was going on. So after 5 hours, my sister hopped in the water and I went because I tried to explain I'm really not a distance swimmer. I swim fast and slow, and a distance swimmer, like I'll get in a pace, but I'm going to get into a comfortable pace. A distance swimmer swims all one pace. Nancy is one pace. Usually her fastest 100 fly, for instance, is on the first 100 of her 200 fly. If she did 100 fly alone, she wouldn't go as fast as she would there. So I'm not that type of swimmer. I'm more middle distance where I can go fast and slow. My sister got in the water and I wasn't allowed to draft, but she could swim next to me. And I went from 1.5 knots to 2.5 knots. All you have to do is tell me to swim faster and I'll swim fast. So, and then I caught the tide and everything seemed to be working out. And as I approached, I didn't have a nice beach to land in. It was 11:30 in the morning, so at least it was light out, not a bad time of day, anything like that. But I landed on a cliff, so I had to climb over boulders in order to finish my race. So I had to swim it at night in rough conditions, climbing. So I warn people who want to try open water swimming and doing marathons, if you want an easy swim, don't do it with me because it never ends up the easy swim the days I get. But I made it. So I guess I faced the channel and made the challenge.
You did, which is awesome, amazing. I've mentioned to many people that I have a friend who swam the English Channel. Why? It might be a dumb question, but why couldn't you go at the same time Nancy did?
With the Channel Association, there's all kinds of rules. Like even your bathing suit, You're not allowed to wear tech suits or anything. It says in there the guys wear the old-fashioned Speedos there, and mine were. I wasn't allowed to have anything covering my legs. I had to have our regular one-piece bathing suits. You could wear a two-piece, but you can't have anything covering your legs and stuff. So there's all kinds of rules on it to truly accomplish the swim. They do have another association. There's two channels association, of course, because of politics. And one person got ousted, a boat captain got ousted. And so they formed a separate association. And we went with the original association that existed. And there's another one that is another credible association that follows the same rules. And then there's a third group that actually for people with, like in this group, you could wear wetsuits and different things because a lot of times it's somebody with some sort of disability, whether they've lost a limb and they still want to attempt it or something along those lines. So there is a third group that will allow modified, but in the true English Channel rules, you're not allowed to do any of that.
And so wait, but why? What did that have to do with you not being able to swim at the same time as Nancy?
You each have your own boat captain. Like if we went with, I guess if I went with a different boat captain and they coordinated, we could have swam at the same time. But we chose to go with the same boat captain, and that boat captain is only allowed to take one swimmer at a time. So that's a better answer to your question.
That makes perfect sense. I was not tracking that.
I have a book, and ironically, in the book, alphabetically, I'm next to Gertrude Ederle because D&E. So we were next to each other listed because you're listed by time and you're listed. And that's an old book because that came out shortly after I swam it, and they update the book occasionally.
Such an accomplishment. And wait, I know your trip to Australia. That was lifeguarding.
I lifeguarded in Australia in 1993. I lifeguarded in Victoria, Australia. I had to do training and pass all the tests for the Australian lifesaving. And then it was really cool. I got to work on Phillip Island, which was Woolamai Voluntary Patrol. And it's where fairy penguins come up on the beach on one side. They had a whole show for especially Japanese tourists. And on the other side, there were a lot of seals. They've done the most research on great whites right off of that area through science and research and everything.
Yes, I remember being a young college student, or actually I was still in high school. It was an exchange year program, but I'm still waiting for that hot Australian lifeguard to be sent over to us because that never happened.
Well, I didn't officially do an exchange, so I just kind of went over. And I did go to Ocean Grove, Australia, since we lifeguarded in Ocean Grove, New Jersey. Of course, I did get to compete in a competition. It happened to be when the Californians were there competing against the Australians, and I got to compete in that competition. So I was competing with the Australians.
Yeah, it seems like lifeguarding. Well, they're both. You've kept up with your swimming and your lifeguarding. I mean, they're still a huge part of your life, which is amazing.
I do have a dream, and I don't know if it will happen. I want to go back, and Nancy wants to go to Australia. And I spent Christmas in Perth, and we went scuba diving on Rottnest Island on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. And there's a swim that goes from Perth to Rottnest Island. And originally, when I was retiring, I was planning on attempting that swim in February of 2026. But then with retiring, new cars, and all kinds of life going on, I've put it off. But we're still going to look into maybe in the next couple of years attempting, and it's a 20K swim. So hopefully we'll get to attempt that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. It helps so much to have a partner in crime. Like
it does. We're going. I haven't done many local races, but I'm going to go with her. Greensboro, North Carolina, near where my family is, happens to be Masters Swimming Nationals this year. So it's April 30th, May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So I'm going to go just do my backstroke events and stuff like that this year.
Fun. So clearly you're an amazing athlete. When you started teaching swim lessons in high school, when did you pick up coaching? And before you answer that, in your mind, where's the line between teaching and coaching? Like you didn't coach swim lessons, and with the young kids you're teaching now, those are teaching lessons as opposed to coaching. So like in your mind, what's the difference and where's the line?
Okay, so where did I start? Right after I graduated college, I actually had a business degree, and I thought that summer was going to be my last. I lifeguarded in Australia, and then I thought I had one more summer, and I thought I was going to go in the business world and leave the lifeguard world and leave the swimming world. And I got a job in sales, which I was terrible at, and
Sales is awful.
not my thing. I don't like pushing anything. If you want it, I'll sell it to you. And I can do that well, but I wasn't doing something I liked. So I ended up coaching swimming, Monmouth Barracudas, right when I came back from Australia. And I continued coaching. And by January, I decided I liked being a teacher and I liked working with kids and I liked lifeguarding. So I could do all that and be happier. So I went back and started substitute teaching, got my master's degree in education, and continued coaching, and then started coaching high school. I decided teaching, coaching, this was what I love to do. And I love working with people and teaching them. I'm a better high school teacher than probably in elementary or younger children. I do my favorite age group to coach in swimming, which can be very different, is 11, 12s because you see a lot of progress. And that's when they really develop and you can start pushing them. But they also don't get the attitude as much as the teenagers.
They
And
don't know it all yet.
also, like sometimes they plateau a little bit in there. So I see a lot of progress where I like 10 and unders, but you can't do as much or change as much in their stroke. So, like instructing or teaching swimming, usually you're breaking everything down so much. And especially, it's always interesting. I teach a lot of adult lessons too. And when adults have picked up bad habits their whole life, it's hard. You have to break it apart. So, you teach it little by little. So, I'll teach the kicking first. And then, if they're not good with the kicking, then maybe I have to add the arms in or add fins in to get their body position correct. And so it's easier to teach the kids because they haven't developed the bad habits. So you start off with water safety, jumping in, getting their face in the water, and then you move on to actually paddling and everything else once they've gotten your trust and confidence. With the adults, a lot of the adults think they can swim. And then as soon as they go in the deeper water, they feel like they're falling forward or they feel like they don't realize the phobias they've developed over time. So then you have to go back. Let's go in the shallow end. Let's start by putting our head under and humming so you can teach them to breathe out of their nose rather than their mouth. Because a lot of times when you train triathletes, and that's more coaching because they usually can make it back and forth. But when you train them, they're holding their breath when their face is in the water. And they want to learn to slowly exhale. So when they pick up their head to breathe, that they're just inhaling. Otherwise, they hyperventilate. And that's why they might be able to run 10 miles or a marathon, but then they get out of breath with one lap of swimming. So you have to first teach them to breathe. And again, break it down in the components because swimming, you have to worry about breathing. It's not like running and other sports where you just get, you do have to control your breathing, but you're not in a body of water where you can't breathe. And then you have to worry about the kick. You have to worry about body position and floating in the water. You have to worry about, and all of these obviously are critical so you don't drown. And that's always the funny thing to me with triathletes, again, is I don't know how many times I showed up. One time they had an Olympic length triathlon in Asbury Park. The day before, it was huge. Then the west wind came in and it was perfectly flat. But the west wind, of course, as you know, made the water cold. It went dropped down to 62 degrees. So all these people were wearing wetsuits and I was wearing my bathing suit. And this woman's like, "Are you going to be okay?" And I'm like, "I think I'll be okay. I can make
This
it
is my ocean.
And then she goes, "This is my first time swimming in the ocean." In my mind, I didn't say this to her, and I wished her good luck. And she had her wetsuit, and it might have been the swim where they had a lot of the swim angels and stuff just to monitor. But training in the ocean, when you think about a triathlon, other than on the bike, maybe getting hit by a car, the ocean is where you really could die. You could drown if you're not good in the ocean. So it might be a good idea to train a little bit in the anytime. I have helped a couple people train for their swimming portion of an Ironman, and I always make them go in the ocean. I make them not wear a wetsuit. We'll do some wetsuit swim, but I make them train without a wetsuit a lot. We go out in the chop, we go out in bad water, and I just want them to be prepared for whatever. Because one of the last women that I trained, she was doing Ironman Florida, and you think Florida, flat water, but it was very choppy, and of course the water was warmer, so you weren't allowed to wear your wetsuit when it reaches a certain temperature.
I would have sworn I wore my wetsuit, but I don't.
Well, it depends. If you were there, when she did it, the water must have been over 78 degrees, because I think that's the temperature. 78 degrees, you're not allowed to wear a wetsuit. Because one year I did the Garden State triathlon, and it's in a lake, and the water was like in the 80s. So we weren't allowed to wear the wetsuits.
I wonder if I have any pictures.
Because it does get very choppy there. I assume did the wind pick up, or did you have flat water when you did it?
This was in 2000, so I don't recall.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if they shortened that one. The one I did in Ohio was in a lake, and it was supposed to be an out and back, and they shortened it. So it was an out back for safety reasons. But yeah, I tell people all the time, like, yes, that is why the swim is first, because
Absolutely.
that's where you're going to die. You can fall over. I'm running a marathon after you do all that. It's not easy, but you can always walk. There is no walking lane. You got to get back to the shore.
Absolutely. And that's why a lot of the open water races that they do, like in the Olympics or like for national championships, a lot of those, like one of them that they're doing in Sarasota is actually in a rowing venue. There's alligators there, so I have no desire to go down there and do it, but it's in a rowing venue, and you do a box course. So then it's easier to check all the people, make sure they complete the race and they're not cheating or cutting. And then it's easier to put water stops and everything else in, which for me, that just makes it not as much fun. I like going around Manhattan or seeing something but I understand why they do it.
I did Ironman South Africa. I didn't finish that one. That swim almost killed me because I took a lot of water in my goggles, and they wanted to pull me after the swim, which I didn't understand. Apparently, I looked like death because the water is super salty.
Yes.
And I was like, no, I'm fine. I was throwing up a lot of salt water at that point, so I was done. Did you go alternate route for teaching, or did you do student teaching with that master's degree?
I did alternate route, but I only had to do a practicum, and then I had to take a class about teaching and stuff. That's what the alternate route.
What year was that?
I guess 1997, because I was teaching at a Catholic school. The first year when I got my official certificate, not my probationary, or I think they use a different word. Yeah, certificate of eligibility. Thank you. I got my certificate of eligibility, and I taught there for a year. And from that year, I had a mentor and was able to get my permanent certificate. And then the following years, when I got hired in Homedale and hired as their swim coach, and then the following, the second year I coached soccer and lacrosse on top of swimming.
I usually ask people, like, do you coach any other sport? And like, do you think you could? Because some people are of the mind that, coaching a sport is very specific, whereas others are, no, like coaching is a skill, and then you have to have knowledge of a specific sport, but the coaching alone is.
And I agree, because the reason I ended up coaching lacrosse was just starting for girls in our area. There wasn't high school lacrosse coaches because a lot of our area didn't have people that played women's lacrosse and even men's lacrosse. At that time, there weren't a lot of men's lacrosse teams. So I coached soccer in the fall, and me and the varsity soccer coach, we both coached the girls' lacrosse team. And it was so, I would get out there and I'd play and have a blast with them and learn the sport. It was the first time I actually coached, because I did coach Little League softball. And it was the first time I had ever coached a sport that I didn't play myself. But I definitely agree. Once you learn to coach, you can transfer a lot of that skill to the other sport. You just have to learn about that sport.
I fully agree. Where did you learn your coaching skills? You have referenced in swimming. I know I did my what is it, the basic water instructor, whatever the
Water safety instructor?
yeah, water safety instructor to teach swim lessons. You know, like the progressions you talk about, like all comes from that course. But where else?
Well, I started at the YMCA, and I don't believe at that time they forced me to get the WSI.
They have
I
their
don't even,
own in-house.
they do have their
Yeah.
own, and I learned their skills, but I don't know if I got an official certificate. Maybe I did and didn't realize it. I did get my lifeguard training and all of that because I was in high school. I did lifeguard some shifts, and then I taught the swim lessons. So I definitely did learn that. And then all of a sudden, high school, there was a drowning in a Trenton pool in New Jersey. And at one time, water safety instructor was the ultimate certification in Red Cross back in the 80s. So that included lifeguard training, that included everything. But then they split them apart. So you have lifeguard training, first aid, and all of that is separate. And then you have the swim teaching, which the water safety instructor really isn't even officially for coaching. It's more for teaching swim lessons. But because some politician saw that it said water safety instructor and there was a drowning, which if it was a high school or an elementary school student that was in class that drowned, then they should have had their water safety instructor. But they required swim coaches, PE teachers that taught swimming. Everybody needed their WSI, which as a coach, WSI, there are components that do
Yeah.
help you, but it's really not meant for coaching. It's meant for teaching swim lessons. And as you mentioned, there's definitely a difference. Coaching is bringing you to the next level and everything.
But there wasn't then, and I don't think there is now. There isn't a Red Cross equivalent like coaching
There
certification.
isn't. For
Yeah.
coaching, like USA Swimming for coaching. Well, nowadays, of course, in the world we live in, we have to do all the
Risk.
grooming and protective to protect the athletes, safe sport. So we have to take all those classes. Then there is a coach's safety instructor or coach's safety course that I have to have also. And then there's different agencies. There's no real Red Cross one. Some of the Red Cross stuff is good to use, and they do talk about fitness swimming more than competitive. And they do go over the diving components, but they talk about the fitness swimming more than the competitive swimming. So there are agencies out there. I now also have a starfish certification. That's another certification more geared towards swim lessons again.
Has USA Swimming always had certifications?
No, I don't remember doing it in 1994. Eventually, they had a test that we have to take, and they do offer excellent classes. And now with YouTube and everything else, but they offer excellent classes to make it more fun, to go over the strokes, to look at different techniques. I did when I was working with Barracudas. Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it. It's a fluid mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Fluid mechanics came in, and that's more about coaching. And I was trained in fluid mechanics. That was in like 94 or 95. I took a fluid mechanics course through Monmouth Barracudas. They came in and trained all of our coaches for development of stroke technique. So you have more private agencies that certify, and USA Swimming has all kinds of different, like I said, courses, and you can get different levels of coaching and stuff. But I would say it's gotten more and more in the last 10, 15 years, where especially I think for the safety of the athletes,
Yeah.
that's where a lot of it falls
Would
nowadays.
would you
Sorry.
say you learned how to be a, we'll stick with swimming, but like you learned how to be a good, effective swim coach by taking those classes?
I think it's a combination of the coaches I had that mentored me, my opportunities in swimming. I would say becoming a coach, especially in my 20s, my swimming got better because I was thinking more about the technique and taking those classes and thinking about the theory. When I was swimming, I was like, I'm going to be more efficient. And my underwaters have gotten so much. I was always a kicker, but my underwaters became so much more efficient with help from all those courses. So I think not only did it make me a more effective coach, it also made me a better swimmer. Not necessarily faster, but a better swimmer. I was probably around the same speed, or certain events, I guess I got faster. And then I also was able to think about it. So I think it developed me as a whole. The more you learned about the science, the more effective you were. And then now I even officiate swimming. So I like the sport of swimming and lifeguarding.
No, yeah. Do you think your coaches did or didn't have that same information you ended up getting from these courses? Like you talk about the science of swimming. Was it that they didn't have it and therefore weren't instilling it in you? Or were you one of
Well,
those define, I'm not gonna listen to anything you tell me anyway?
swimming technique has changed immensely over the years. And I read a really interesting book, and I cannot think of the name of it, of course, right now. It was about the Japanese swimmers in Hawaii. And it was like during the 30s, a lot of Japanese children were drowning in some of these rivers. And this is where some of our technique and endurance training and speed work came from. There's a guy who wasn't a swimmer who tried to teach these kids to swim and actually developed some Japanese swimmers that would have made the Olympics in 1940 if it existed, but they swam against the current because that's where the kids were swimming in this little I don't know if it was a river or a tidal pool, and they were swimming against it, and he trained them and ended up training Olympians and developed a lot of the swimming techniques we use today in our training.
Interesting. No, that's fascinating. The book Michelle was trying to remember is The 3-Year Swim Club, The Untold Story of Maui's Sugar Ditch Kids and Their Quest for Olympic Glory. It was written by Julia Checkaway in 2016. It tells the story of Maui kids who trained in irrigation ditches under Soichi Sakamoto and became extraordinary swimmers. According to the author's website, the students in this story faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles because they were Japanese American, malnourished, barefoot, and had no pool. They trained in filthy irrigation ditches that snaked around the mountains into the sugarcane fields. Their teacher was an extraordinary man whose swimming ability didn't extend much beyond treading water. As Michelle said, he was not a swimmer. In spite of everything, the children outraced Olympic athletes twice their size. In their second year, they were national and international champs, shattering American and world records and making headlines from LA to Nazi Germany. In their third year, they would be declared the greatest swimmers in the world, but they also faced their greatest obstacle, the dawning of a world war and the cancellation of the Olympic Games. It also says in 1948, they'd have one last chance for Olympic glory. So I guess we'll have to read the book and see how it turns out. And that's also a question I ask people a lot is, do you think you had to be an athlete in a particular sport in order to coach it well? And you get those people who are like, absolutely.
Some of the best swimming coaches weren't swimmers. And if you look at UVA's program right now, they got the engineering program involved, looking at the fluid mechanics and technique, and did all kinds of computer engineering. And you can see especially the UVA women's team is taking off, and they use a lot of that in their training. So with knowledge and technology and kinesiology and all that, swimming has involved a great deal. And also it's really good for your technique and not getting injured too, to prevent injuries, hopefully.
What if you were going to make your own coaching certification program for swimming or really for any sport? What do you think the most important components would be?
Well, I personally like teaching it so they'll love it and do it the rest of their lives. And I try to lead by example, and I continue to swim and they can see. And I jump in the pool with them sometimes and swim in practices with them and hopefully inspire them, because most of our athletes that we're training aren't going to be the next Olympian. I want them to do it for the rest of their lives. So I want to instill, that's a big thing I want to instill. Otherwise, I would say a big component is proper technique so they don't get injured, and to help them develop that proper technique so if they want to, they can do it the rest of their lives.
Interesting. How do you teach somebody to teach proper technique? How did you learn it? Or how would you have you trained other coaches?
I do. Paul usually sends me some of the newer coaches and they can see some of the drills and stuff. And we have a list of drills and technique and how to give good, proper feedback and be positive reinforcement rather than going to the negative side, all a huge part of coaching today. And just, I guess, mentoring them and seeing, oh, these are the sets I do. And a lot of the swimmers that I coach with now, I was their coach. So a lot of our program, it's kids that, so they are swimmers, so they understand, and they might have gone to college somewhere else and they have a great set to bring in. So we
Mm-hmm.
work together and come together in the different sets and stuff like that. I guess that's the best way. I'm a doer more than, so I like learning through, like when we do a new drill, I try it myself because then I can explain it better.
So you are like the ideal mentor, and that sounds like it fits your style of like helping the next generation of coach. You've never done it in like any more official capacity.
Not coaching, more in the lifeguard world is where, as you know, I do a lot of the training and teaching kids first aid and that part of it. But coaching, more of my mentoring has been just working with other coaches and some of our younger coaches, and we work together on the pool deck. So I haven't really coached a coach's course, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah,
It's more, I just enjoy the coaching end of that.
yeah, I do. I mean, kind of sidetracked, but I'm interested in hearing when I was lifeguard, when we were lifeguards, there was no real training. Like there was on the job training, but there was no
Absolutely.
academy or anything. And I had like a Red Cross lifeguard certification, but many of the guards didn't because it was seen as pointless because the crossover between the pool and the ocean was minimal. So we had all our training just in-house. You actually were the one who told me when my daughter became a lifeguard. I really didn't know that it had switched over to such an official system. And it's most people would consider lifeguarding not a sport, but it certainly is. It's competitive. Do you call it a sport?
There is the sport of lifeguarding. So
Okay.
you have the safety side and sitting on the bench and technique. And when I lifeguarded in Australia, part of our sport, we did first aid competitions too. Or they did IRB competitions where you'd actually put the motor on the inflatable rescue boat and go out and make a rescue and time and race that way. So a lot of their components included safety, and of course, at our nationals, we do have some rescues, and some of it is just pure competition. Like on the surf ski, we're not going to use a surf ski to rescue. Just over time, we've developed it so it's a faster kayak essentially to race through the surf. They developed originally, they were sitting on paddle boards and you could see where you were going and essentially used a paddle to get out to your victim because they felt it was a faster way. And that's how the whole surf ski developed. So there's the sport side of lifeguarding goes from racing, the individual races, rowing races, and then competitions.
It
So
is. It
it
is
is a
such
combination of a sport. It was in the Goodwill Games in Australia as sport, and they tried to push for components. There will be a rowing component, not just in cruise shells, in boats that go in the ocean in the upcoming 2028 Olympics in LA.
A quick point of clarification here. The new ocean style event coming to the Olympics in 2028 is not a lifeguarding event. It's not under the United States Lifesaving Association. It is a rowing event. So it is under US rowing. Beach Sprints will make its first Olympic appearance at LA 28 as part of the coastal rowing discipline. And that rowing will include 3 medal events in coastal beach sprints. World Rowing explains that beach sprints is a run, row, run event. It is very similar to lifeguarding, and this is kind of where my two rowing worlds collide because I was a rower in college and a lifeguard in the summers. In lifeguard competitions, you start several yards from the boat and you run down the beach, you jump in the boat, you row out, usually past a flag and back, and one of the two rowers has to get out of the boat and run up the beach to the finish line. So this is a totally same type of run, row, run, but they're not lifeguard boats. They're cruise shells. They're ocean modified cruise shells, but they're still cruise shells. So it'll be cool. You are still a kick-ass, nationally ranked, what do you call it? Like, not lifeguard. Like, I don't know. The sport of lifeguarding does not roll off my tongue. But that's like a common phrase?
Yeah, they call it this. If you go to the USLA website, it's lifeguarding, and then it says sport national team. We have a national team. We have an international team. We have all kinds of stuff like that. It's just like track does and swimming. We have at our nationals, we have 5-year age groups for the masters, and then you have the open category. And I have fun competing in both still. Don't tell me I'm too old. I'm starting to feel it, but don't tell me I'm too old.
Obviously, I know that lifeguarding is a competitive activity as well as an important job. For whatever reason, it never crossed over in my mind into a sport. But competitive lifesaving is clearly a sport. The International Lifesaving Federation is recognized by the International Olympic Committee and the World Health Organization and the Global Association of International Sports Federations, the International World Games Association, the International Military Sports Council, and the International Masters Games Association, where life-saving sport is part of the program at the World Masters Games. The United States Life-Saving Association, the USLA, holds a National Lifeguard Championships every summer. Monmouth County has won 4 times, which is super impressive given that lifeguards in New Jersey only work in the summer, whereas in other parts of the country, like California, lifeguards are year-round due to their favorable weather conditions. But in New Jersey, it's a lot of teachers who lifeguard in the summer, including Michelle. Monmouth County has won most recently in 2023. And it's no surprise that the top points earner of all age group women last summer was the one and only Michelle Davidson.
And I like when there's big surf because the young kids don't know what they're doing. So, of course, back in the day, we were allowed to train in bigger surf too.
Now it's safety first. And don't think for a second that Michelle is joking when she says she likes the big surf. Just have a look at the cover of American Lifeguard magazine from spring 2020, and you'll see a picture of Michelle being launched from a boat because after rowing it through a wave, the boat went vertical and it looks like she's laying flat in the boat, but the boat and Michelle are both perpendicular to the ocean. And according to the magazine, her and her partner finished the race. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but is there anything I didn't ask about that you would like to discuss?
No, I think you did a good job. And you made me very comfortable, I've got to say. I was a little nervous. I didn't know. I hope I did okay with this. And
No, you were great.
and I've got to say, you do make it casual and like a conversation. So it was very easy.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get this one edited and published. I do think it's crazy, though, that you never switched into coach development because I think you would be so good at it, but it's not what pulls at your heart.
I guess I like developing lifeguards better. Maybe in the next year or so, I can switch to that. I do, again, I'm not a water safety instructor either, like for the swim lessons. I'm not an instructor of it. I take the class and then I instruct the people for it. And just like, I like teaching lifeguards. That's one of my favorite jobs is training the rookies and taking them out in the surf and teaching them how to use the currents and the waves and stuff like that.
Okay, actually, I think I interrupted myself. How did it turn into an official, more centralized, like rookie school program?
Over time, through the Department of Health and different agencies, they developed a curriculum, which now we get our curriculum for the United States Lifesaving Association. There are some separate curriculums. The United States Lifesaving Association works with the International Lifesaving Association, and we've developed curriculums. The only thing, even with that, they have components of it, but like our beach has a pier, not all beaches. Some beaches have rocks, some don't. So you have to still use the book and the manual and then individually use your protocols and fit into the state guidelines in order to teach the lifeguards to be able to do safety on your beach. So different beaches are going to have different things they have to worry. Like we don't have coral reefs off of here, but in Hawaii you have to worry about the coral reef. And that was a little adjustment when I went there to swim Lanai to Maui because I wasn't used to swimming around the coral reefs. So learning experiences everywhere.
I have a scar on my foot from some Hawaiian coral. No, I think that is a great kind of combo system that the curriculum is providing you a base, but it has the flexibility that you implement it based on the scenario you're dealing with.
And I do like the kids that come with the Red Cross because I think one, they can use that in college if they want to work at a pool in the winter or anything like that. And then two, there are skills that carry over, rescues, escapes. So you learn some basics or even just learning to communicate to the general public or activate the AEP and stuff like that. We call active on our benches. So you're doing the same exact thing. So there is the carryover and it gives them a foundation, even though
Absolutely.
you need further training in the ocean for sure.
Yeah, I would think people coming with some skills are better than people coming with no
Absolutely.
skills. No, that's yeah, I think that was a great improvement in the lifeguarding world and much more practical, I guess, than the national governing bodies taking up certifications in a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And I've had a blast the last couple years now that we've done a regional academy and several Monmouth County beaches work together. And we do training in May and June, and then we go down to the Seagirt Army Base and we do the rookie training. And it's great for the other rookies to see them and we work as a team. And then they have to go back to their beaches and learn individual things, but it's a better experience for all of them. And I'm very happy with the whole experience. And
Yeah, no,
I'm lucky they allow me to be an instructor there, so it's a lot of fun.
you're so cute. And my daughter was lucky to have you as an instructor. See, where I just had you as a mentor in the
We had a
past.
lot of fun.
Yes, yes.
Crazier days.
I owe you a lot of a debt of gratitude. My kids, especially, they know some of the crazy ass things I've done in my life. Or I mean, you even said you're planning for the Ironman. You were like, I'm going to do that within the next 17 years. I think you said you were 18. It was your goal for 35. I was working at the gym and somebody was like, "Oh, I do the Ironman," and I met some guy on the train coming back to Manhattan, who was like, "Hey, I have a bike you should borrow. Let's go ride 50 miles." That was the first time it was his mountain bike, but we went over the GWB, and like next thing you know, I was signed up for an Ironman. So I've done some crazy things in my life, but I think I owe a lot to having grown up with you that was like my normal. Yeah, Misha's gonna go swim the English Channel or like do this or do that. Like that's what I grew up with, and it seemed so normal. like we would go to lifeguard tournaments, many a tournament. You and I would be the only females in the entire tournament, unless the other teams were required to bring females. We just had such a small beach that, I wasn't the best at anything, but I was the body, and I was in every tournament the whole time I was a lifeguard. There was no tournament team. And that's like, I wrote my college essay about lifeguard tournaments. So it definitely, it stays with the person.
And I'm glad I've had the opportunity. If it has helped other people, even better, but to stand up and say, hey, we can do it too. I want to be able to do this. Don't tell me I can't do it. That's been my attitude the whole time in lifeguarding. And I wanted to train so I could do it too. And I tell the kids, use every piece of equipment. You're not going to be the best on every piece, but learn it and use it. And that way it helps you and it makes you a stronger person and allows us to do it. But yeah, just our crazy stuff is normal. And if it helps other people, I hope so. I don't want any girl to ever think that she can't do it because she's a girl anyway. Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a feminist or anything like that.
Yeah, and not if. It's definitely helped other people. Like, I'll think of all the people you've coached. And see, now, do you say coached at lifeguarding?
I usually say trained, I guess.
Yeah.
I usually think I train lifeguards because I guess I'm not thinking of coaching the sport, but I have mentored many people. And obviously, I take you out on the boat. I take people surf skiing and teach them that. I teach them about the surf. So that is some of the sport. So I guess it's a combination. And when we do the lifeguard tournaments, all the young kids that are pool swimmers, I always train them to look back at the buildings behind because they're never going to see the flag on the beach when they're swimming in, so they can sight better, and grabbing the sand and how to go out. So how to swim more efficiently in the ocean. So I guess I do coach them there too, even though I say train.
Yeah. Well, like a lot, they're paid. Like when they're a lifeguard, they're paid. So I think it's kind of.
But junior lifeguards aren't paid, and I train those guys too.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Sport Coach Education Podcast. I would really appreciate it if you did all those helpful things like, subscribe, and share this podcast so others can enjoy it. I hope you listen to another episode. So until next time, take care.